What could cause a woman to leave her beautiful family home on the Maine seacoast for the unknown? To share a remote farmhouse on the Kansas prairie with strangers? For Sarah Wheaton, it was a few simple words in a newspaper ad placed by Jacob Whitting, the widowed father of 2 small children. A few words that spoke to her of a challenge, an opportunity to achieve something on her own.
Needed a kind woman to share a life with a widower and his 2 young children. To make a difference. No picture necessary.
The story of Sarah Wheaton, Sarah Plain and Tall, is based on an actual event in author Patricia MacLachlan's family history, when a mail-order bride came to Kansas. The Newbery award-winning book became a classic almost overnight, selling well over 1 million copies. Although the book is written from the children's perspective, the story of Sarah bringing love to a lonely, motherless family struck a deep chord with adult readers too.
It's very simple, and yet it's about it's about real people, and real people are always very complicated. So it's very delicate, I find, and challenging for that reason.
Actress Glenn Close, who not only portrays Sarah in the film, but also served as executive producer, first became familiar with the book when she recorded it for Books on Tape. When Close finished the recording, she invited the author to the studio to hear the tape, and the two hit it off immediately.
I met Patty MacLachlan, who wrote the book, and she said that she had had many, many offers from people who wanted to make a movie out of it, but she would love it if I would do it, so I said yes.
But bringing the story to the screen offered some challenges, such as creating a full-length film script from a 58-page children's book. Author MacLachlan added characters, like neighbors Matthew and Maggie, and expanded the plot. Then she and screenwriter Carol Sobieski created a script that takes a closer look at the growing relationship between Sarah and Jacob. The book and the script both paint a picture of the home that Jacob Whitting shares with his 2 children, Anna and Caleb, a simple working farm on the prairie. The filmmakers found what they were looking for on an isolated farm near Emporia, Kansas. Along with the farmhouse and barn, there was a nearby pond and an abandoned white-frame church. But long before filming could begin, work needed to be done to turn back the clock to 1910. The grass lawn in front of the house, something virtually unheard of at the turn of the century, was removed and a vegetable garden was planted. A field of sorghum had to be planted well in advance so that it would be nearly ready to harvest by the time the cameras started rolling. The house itself required a lot of effort, but not to spruce it up. Carpenters and painters were brought in to make it look more rustic. The roof looked a little too good, so it was removed to expose the old worn shingles underneath. New siding was added, but then it was painted and aged to look weathered. The church, however, was another story.
The church, which is just over there, was an abandoned church and no glass in the windows and really in bad shape. We fixed up half of it, put glass in half of it, and it just looked terrific.
One of the crew's proudest achievements was the old windmill tower they built on location, and then aged to match the look of the house. To make sure the windmill turned on cue, even if there was no wind, a battery to power the motor was buried in the ground, out of sight of the cameras. Antique farm implements and wagons were borrowed from neighbors and the Agricultural Hall of Fame, which is located in the area. The script called for 2 scenes to be shot in a secluded graveyard where Jacob's wife is buried. Since none of the cemeteries in the area matched that description, the set designers created their own. First, a quiet, isolated spot was selected. Then the crew went to work, creating the tombstones out of urethane foam board. Once the grave markers were complete, they were carefully arranged and sod and flowers were added to complete the look of a country graveyard. When a movie is filmed entirely on location, as Sarah Plain and Tall was, there are always some elements that can't be controlled. Like the squadron of bombers from the nearby Air Force Base that passed over about noon every day. And the weather. Rain delayed shooting or moved the crew inside several times during the filming. But when the script called for a rainstorm, it had to be created by a special effects crew. One of the most dramatic scenes in the movie occurs when a sudden, violent storm hits the Whitting farm, blowing off part of the roof and toppling the windmill. Preparing to film such a scene always takes far longer than the actual shooting itself. Planning must be precise, because the safety of the cast and crew is always the first concern. And they all knew they would only get one chance to get it right. When the windmill crashed to the ground, it would be destroyed. 2 giant wind machines, 2 rain machines, and a tanker truck with 5,000 gallons of water were brought in for this one scene. Magnesium flashes were used to create the effect of lightning. To simulate the dust kicked up by the approaching storm, Fuller's earth was tossed into the giant fans. In the scene, Glenn Close must run past the windmill as it starts to fall. The legs of the structure were hinged so that the actors and crew knew exactly where it would fall. Multiple cameras were used to record the action from several angles. When the preparations were complete, the special effects experts turned on the storm. Realism was not a problem for the cast, as they were pelted by the driving rain and buffeted by the gale force winds. But all the effort was worth it. The finished scene is an exciting and pivotal moment in the film. Costumes are an important part of establishing the mood of any period film. For Christopher Walken, who portrays Jacob, his costume was part of getting into his role.
I'm from New York City. I was born there, raised there, so I put on my overalls and hope people will believe I'm a foreigner.
The attention to detail in the costumes is extraordinary. Most of Glenn Close's costumes were created especially for the film. But costume designers had to search all over the country to find fabrics that were authentic for the period. Special attention was given to every costume for every character. Even the extras were often seen only briefly in the background. Many of the costumes, from hats all the way down to shoes, were from vintage clothing companies. When all the preparation and filming was finally complete and the movie appeared on the screen, fans of the book were rewarded with a closer look at this special family. And several million more people discovered the magic of Sarah Plain and Tall. A story where good things happen to good people.